How's it going, everybody? All right, isn't it great to be back in person? I'm so excited to be here. I want to make a big thanks to Martin and Emily and the whole Mind the Product team. It's so nice to be back in person. It was great to hang out with people last night and today. So I'm excited to be here at Mind the Product to share some advice on how to prioritize customer needs. I'm going to be sharing some advice from my book, The Lean Product Playbook, on how to do that. I have some ideas from the book. If you read the book, you'll probably be familiar with some of it. But also, there'll be some new frameworks and case studies that are new since the book. And since it's normally rare for product managers to get together in groups anyway, because we're so busy, and even more rare with COVID, I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to share the most important piece of product management knowledge, which is the product manager's motto. Now, I'm guessing some of you at this point know it, but for those of you that don't, it's a bit like Spider-Man's motto. Can anybody help me out? What's Spider-Man's motto? With great power comes great responsibility. That's right. So the product manager's motto, it's similar. It's just a little different. And it's with great responsibility comes no power. It's kind of sad. We're laughing on the outside, but we're crying a little bit on the inside, right? It's like, why do we have to influence so much without authority and no one reports to us, right? So we're responsible, as a product manager, we have broad shoulders. We're usually responsible for a lot of things. And a common question that comes up in every company and every feature team is, hey, what features should we build? Right? I'm sure a lot of you hear this multiple times a week or debating about what feature to build. And I would argue that that's just completely the wrong question and the wrong approach. And so I think a better approach is we should be asking what customer problems, what customer needs can we address? What customer problems can we solve? And this gets at the difference between a feature or solution idea and a need, gets at the heart of a topic that I'm very passionate about, which is problem space versus solution space. So some of you, again, may be familiar with this, but for those of you that aren't, I want to explain it real quick. Problem space is basically a customer problem, need, or benefit that the product should address, right? So if I said, hey, you know what, I feel like it's too hard to share photos with your friends. I want to make it easier to share photos with your friends. That statement, make it easier to share photos with your friends, that's a problem space statement. If you think about it, I haven't said how I'm going to solve that problem. I haven't proposed a solution. Is it going to be an app? Is it going to be carrier pigeons? What's it going to be? I don't know. We haven't done a solution yet, right? So that's the thing about the problem space. It's like devoid of any solution. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the template to write a well-written user story, right? As a blank type of user, I want to be able to do blank so that I can achieve this benefit, right? I'm sure a lot of you know that. The essence of problem space is really that so I can, right? Why is it important to the person? How is it going to create value for them, right? That's the essence of it. Now, in contrast, solution space is a specific implementation or design to address the need. If right after saying, hey, I want to make it easier for people to share photos with their friends, I said, and last month I launched an app that does that, that app would be in the solution space. Or if I hadn't built an app, but I had a designer friend that gave me a set of mock-ups, that set of mock-ups would be in the solution space, right? So that's the difference. Now, why is this important? Because I find far too often, and even at last night's reception, somebody said, what's the biggest problem you see in product teams? This is probably it. We all rush to solutions. We tend to. Most people tend to rush to solutions, right? They propose feature ideas, and they're not clear on the problem. And so it becomes like a kind of a ready, fire, aim situation where we're launching features, but we're not really clear on the problems that they're going to solve, right? And as I like to say, if we have to sum up everybody's job, I know why. Developers, they live in solution space. They have to ship code that works in the solution space, right? So it makes sense that they're kind of solution space minded. Designers have to create designs and mock-ups and pixels in solution space, right? So it kind of begs the question, who on the team is really in charge of thinking about the problem space? It's the product managers, right? And if I sum up a developer's job as developers develop, designers design, what verb would I use for product managers? It would be define, defining who our customers are and what their needs are, right? Okay, and to tie it back, the key framework from my book is the product market fit pyramid. When you jump in with a feature idea, you're jumping all the way in here at level 4. You're skipping all these foundational layers in the problem space. Your odds of success are really low, right? It's kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Whereas if you can work through who's our customer, what are their needs, what's our value prop, your odds of building solutions that are going to actually create value are much higher. So today's talk, I'm going to be going really deep on just this one layer and how to think about customer needs and, most importantly, how to prioritize them. Now, to use a real example, I started my product career at Intuit, which was a great place to learn product management. One of their popular products is TurboTax. Anyone here use TurboTax in the last 3 months? The taxes were due last month, so it's probably sorry to bring that up again. What's the overall problem? What's the market opportunity at a high level that TurboTax provides? It'd probably be something like, help me prepare my taxes, help me do my taxes, right? So that's the high-level market need. But the reality, if you want to deliver customer value, you have to peel the onion. You have to get more detailed. You can't just stay at that high layer, right, level. You got to be like, okay, what are all the different ways we could help someone with their taxes? And so this is what I call exploring the problem space. This is a fun thing to do because you kind of suspend judgment. For those of you who use TurboTax, help me out. Why was it valuable to you? Someone?
Step by step.
Step by step. Excellent. Easy. Cool. Integrated with other data providers. Yeah. Takes out the complexity. Great. It explains stuff. Excellent. So you guys give a lot of great problem space statements, right? So here's a list of problem space statements, right, that you might hear. Help me prepare my taxes, reduce my audit risk, check my return, save me time, filing, save me time preparing, maximize my deductions, costing less than a CPA, right? And, for a minute, I'm going to get a little grammatical. These all start with a certain part of speech. And I don't know if we have any other Schoolhouse Rock fans, but this verb, that's what's happening. They start with verbs. And I like to start with verbs because it forces you to identify what's the product actually going to do to create value, right? So you want to basically, with your team, brainstorm all the verbs and customer benefit statements that you can, and then dedupe it and clean it up. And then you'll end up with that list. Now, it may seem a little messy, but the reality is there is some order in the problem space. And these are what I call benefit ladders. And so once you have your cleaned up list of benefits here, these 3 benefits, while at the atomic level they are distinct, if you use the 5 whys technique to kind of get the customer to kind of climb up each rung of the ladder, like why is that valuable, why is that valuable, like a toddler or something, they'll tell you, well, it's improving my confidence. Before TurboTax, I had to do it by hand. It was really anxious. I didn't really know what I was doing. But with TurboTax, I feel a lot more confident. So that's one benefit ladder that those 3 benefits fall under. There's a completely distinct benefit ladder that has nothing to do with that just has to do with saving time, whether it's preparing or filing. And then finally, there's another orthogonal benefit of saving money, right? And so this is what I call a problem space definition. And I would argue this, back to the things of PMs define, this is what you need to be helping your team figure out and define, right? This is a problem space definition for TurboTax. You should be creating something similar for your product, right? And you may get excited and say, cool, there's 2 levels. Let's do 3 or 4 levels. You don't need that many levels. 2 levels is adequate, to be honest with you, right? And so now we've decided, we kind of identify what all the things we could do. And now comes the tough part, right? Which is, okay, how do we decide out of all those things we could do, which one should we focus on? And which of those is going to deliver the most customer value? Now, early in my career, when I was wrestling with this question, I tried a lot of different frameworks and methodologies to address it, and I found one that worked really well, and that's the one that I like to use, and that is importance versus satisfaction. So I want to explain this to you, show you how to use it, and then we'll talk through some case studies. And my goal is for you to be able to apply this, right after this talk back at your company. So the importance is in the problem space. For whatever user need we're talking about, whether it's saving you time on your taxes or saving you money on your taxes or whatever the benefit is, how important is that to the user? And by the way, it's a function of the specific target customer. If I ask one type of target customer, they're going to give a certain importance level. There'll be a little bit of noise between different people, but they should cluster together, right, on, hey, this is high importance to me or low importance to me. Now, satisfaction is the x-axis. That's in the solution space. Hey, however you're getting that need met today, how happy are you with that? How satisfied are you with that from low to high? Right, that's the idea. So we got user need, importance in the problem space, and satisfaction solution space. You might be thinking, well, how can I get this data, Dan? Well, you can think of it as a survey question. Whether you actually run a survey or you're just doing one-on-one interviews, it's nice to have a scale. I like to use a 5-point scale for importance. How important is need X? From not important at all, to not important at all to extremely important. A 5-point scale usually works pretty good. Then on satisfaction, we actually have a 2-sided scale because people can be happy or they can be unhappy. So it's a 7-point scale with the neutral center, right? That's how you could imagine getting the data. You can also just do low, medium, high with your team. Without even talking to customers, I like to clarify, you can refine your hypotheses with your team. So let's divide this up into quadrants so we can talk about these different quadrants. Bottom left quadrant, what is this saying? Whatever user need we're talking about is low importance to customers, and it's low, however they're getting that need met today, low satisfaction. Bottom right is low importance of user need. but high satisfaction. Now, at the end of the day, you want to avoid these quadrants, right? These are not worth going after with your precious time and resources because it's fundamentally a low importance need, right? So, and people don't go after these important. They make the mistake that they think it's high importance because they didn't validate it with customer discovery research, or maybe they felt like they were the target customer, things like that. All right, so then now we have the upper right corner. This is high importance of user need, so that's better, right? Because it's high importance, but it's also high satisfaction. So basically, it's high importance, but people are pretty happy with how they're getting it met today. That's the definition of a competitive market, right? And the first example I usually think of here is Google, internet search. If I ask people, hey, how important is it to find what you're looking for online, you'd probably say it's pretty important, right? But it's not like if I ask satisfaction, how satisfied are you? It's not like, this thing is horrible, I can't find anything on Google. It works pretty well, right? And so you hear people say you need to be 10x better. This is the quadrant where you need to be 10x better. You just can't come in with another, Me Too product and expect people to switch. So that's a competitive market. And that leaves the last quadrant here, high importance of user need, low satisfaction. That's where opportunities lie, right? Because it's an important need, and people are telling you they're not happy with how it's getting met today, right? And so we want to, the best way to increase the odds of product success is to do this analysis and find some need up here for your target market that's in that upper left quadrant, right? Because you're going to really be creating value then. Now, what I like about this framework is it's meant to be a visual framework, right? So if we have a product, and we go and ask users, hey, how important is the need that this delivers for you, and how satisfied are you with it, and we average the data, we're going to get like a satisfaction number and an important number. We can plot those as x, y coordinates, right? And that would be like the red dot would be our product plotted with its value. Now, the visual interpretation of this is, hey, the bigger that rectangle, we make a rectangle with the origin, the bigger that rectangle, the more customer value that product creates, right? And if there's another product that delivers higher important need and higher level of satisfaction, its rectangle is just going to be that much bigger. It's going to be delivering that much more value. And when you realize that interpretation of it, then you can think about it as, well, let's assume that green product is the best one in the marketplace. How much opportunity is there to create customer value better than that product? Well, it's basically how much area is there to the right to go to 100% satisfaction, right? So if you think about the opportunity, given where the people are in the marketplace, that's the biggest opportunity, right? And if that was our product, one way to think about what we're trying to do as a team is, hey, we're currently delivering this level of satisfaction. How can we increase the satisfaction level with which we're meeting that need, right? That's the idea, basically. And that's what we want to try to accomplish. Now, the key takeaway of this is, as you're plotting these needs, is basically the closer you are to that upper left corner, the bigger the opportunity, right, to create customer value. That's because that's the point in the space that has the biggest area of the rectangle to the right. Now, just to get mathematical for a sec, we can calculate the area of the rectangle to the right. It would be the importance, which is the height of the rectangle, times 1 minus the satisfaction, which is the width of the rectangle, right? And this is something I always wanted to create a visualization. It's not in the book. I developed it afterwards, of a heat map where you can see that opportunity score, right? So if you want to think about it. And it just reinforces what we had said. Hey, these bottom quadrants, they're not creating value. They're light blue because it's a low importance need, right? And this upper right quadrant, why is that not creating value? Well, because people are satisfied. Even though it's high importance, they're satisfied, right? A well-met need is over here at high satisfaction, right? And then in the upper right, you get really red hot. And as you go away, basically it gets cooler. That's the idea. Now, this is kind of showing you some kind of quantitative way to think about it. I always like to provide like a quantitative tool, but then just an easier to use qualitative tool. So I want to share that with you real quick too. And what you can do, instead of using any numbers or anything, with your team, you can just divide it up into low, medium, high, a 3x3 grid, or if you want a 4x4 or 5x5, go for it. And then what you do is you write each of the customer needs on a sticky note. And then with your team, you estimate, hey, what do we think the importance of this one is? What is the satisfaction of this one is? You place them, right? You debate and you argue and you place them on the thing. And then here's the quick hack. You just draw a line from that upper left corner, and whoever's got the shortest line, you can prioritize based on the length of the line. That's really a quick hack, right? So in this case, the number 1 opportunity would be to save time. Number 2 would be improve confidence. Number 3 would be save money. So that's just a quick hack that you can use. And again, I've found that this is helpful even before you talk to customers. When I run these exercise and workshops, people end up identifying needs that fall in the bottom 2 quadrants and the upper right quadrant. And then they can quickly agree, hey, we don't think we want to waste time on those. Let's not spend time on them. Yeah, let's go validate that with customer discovery interviews, but let's focus on these other needs. So it can help a team really prioritize and align on which problems to solve. Now, the next thing that I want to explain with this is disruptive innovation. So I live here in Silicon Valley, especially here. We have a lot of people disrupting. You go up by a coffee shop. Oh, yeah, we're disrupting this market. We're disrupting this industry. Always be disrupting, right? Everyone's disrupting. Maybe 10% of the people that think they're disrupting are actually disrupting. So I want to explain what that really means in the context. You can actually use importance and satisfaction framework to explain it. So I want to explain. Now, luckily for me, I have an explanational video, so I don't really have to explain it. So let's take a look at this, right? And they're going to explain what true disruptive innovation is. We got the sound? Uh-oh. Oh, here we go. All right.
Now for that one, this is a top to what we use on stage, but it's very, very special because if you can see, the numbers all go to 11. Look, right across the board. 11, 11,
and most of
11,
the
and then
amps go up to 10.
Exactly.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it? It's not 10. You see, most blokes, be playing at 10. You're on 10 here, all the way up, all the way up, all the way up. You're on 10 on your guitar. Where can you go from there? Where?
I don't know.
Nowhere, exactly. What we do is if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly. One louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
All right. So our friends at Spinal Tap are letting us know that disruptive innovation means like redefining what does 10 mean, right? So you're taking it to 11, right? So what does that mean? What that means is really is when you have that satisfaction axis, right, you can think of it as 0 to 10. Something that used to be a 10, everyone was perfectly happy with, all of a sudden some new disruptive technology comes along, and now it's like a 5 or a 7 or a 1, something like that, right? Going from 10 to 11 will be a 10% improvement, right? Let's illustrate this example, and let's build our problem space muscles as well. Let's talk about a need that a lot of people have, which is the desire to listen to music on the go. I'm sure a lot of people here like to listen to music on the go. Let's not focus on what we use today. Let's go back to maybe the 80s or so. What were some solutions to the problem of listening to music on the go in the 80s? That's right? Those of us that were there in the 80s, we were cool. We thought we were super cool, walking down the street with our Walkman, right? And if you ask people, hey, how happy are you with your Walkman? They would say 10 out of 10. It's great, right? And then the other thing I get sometimes is like the boom boxes or transistor radios, things like that, right? But then what happened, we know that MP3 players came along, right? And they kind of read. Now, at first, the first MP3 players were a little rough, right? They didn't hold that many songs. They weren't easy to use. The battery life wasn't that great. But eventually, they surpassed the Walkman because you didn't have to record your music. You didn't have to rewind or fast forward. It was lighter. It could hold a lot more songs, right? And then what happened, right? What disrupted that? Well, then the iPod came out, right? Held way more songs, much better UI, much better battery life. So it took it to 11, redefined it there. And now we all just use our phone, right? So this is what disruptive innovation looks like. And that's the other thing I forgot to mention. Customer needs and problems, they don't change that quickly. People have been wanting to listen to music on the go for a long, long time. I mean, we can get really creative and say, hey, in medieval times, how would you listen to music on the go? You'd hire like a minstrel or a bard to follow you around. That would be the solution if you could afford it, I guess, right? But the solutions come and go, right, much more quickly. So, all right, cool. What I want to do is now try to tie this all together to a case study where we can try to see if we can explain there's two products, one that succeeded and one that didn't. See if we can explain why did that play out that way using the importance versus satisfaction framework. And I need some audience participation for that. The two products are Segway, right, the personal transporter, and Uber, right, both kind of involved with transportation. Let's start out with Segway. So hopefully people are familiar with Segway. The founder of Segway definitely thought he was going to disrupt the market. What problem does Segway address? How would we say that, starting off with a verb?
Ease of movement.
Ease of movement, okay.
Walking is hard.
Walking is hard. Now, part of the thing is we're baking the solution in when we say that. So we wanted to say, what's the problem? Why do I walk? What does walking do for me? Yeah, something like travel short distances, right? Something like that. Because if you're going to Paris, you're going to have to take a plane. But some reasonable distance, you're going to do that. Now, before the Segway came out, what was the top solution that people would use to travel short distances? Walking, yeah. Walking, yeah, right? So walking. And if I asked you, the people that were walking, back then, because we don't walk now, right? How satisfied were you with walking? Most people are satisfied. This, could be a segment of the market that has some pain or disabilities that may not be the case. But for most people that are able to walk, it would be okay. So what did he think? So we were sitting here at 10, 10 out of 10. He thought he was going to take it to 11 and disrupt, right? To draw what he was trying to do, it was this, right? He was trying to do this. Now, did it play out that way? He actually thought everyone in the United States was going to have one of these, right? He thought it was like everyone's going to have one. No one's going to be walking anymore. It didn't quite play out that way, right? Most people did not find that benefit really important. And I jumped over the foundation of the pyramid is actually target customer. So everything we talk about product market fit or importance or satisfaction is a function of the target customer. So what this is telling us is, hey, as a broad mass market product, it did not find product market fit. But it turns out that there were two customer segments where it actually did, two micro segments that did find that benefit important. Anybody help me out with who? Mall cops, that's right. Yeah, mall cops. And I heard tourists, that's right. Those are the two segments out of all the segments that found it appealing, right? That actually said, this is great. Now, let's flip it around. In other talks, I talk about market segmentation. And what we want to do is say, what's the causality here? We can reverse engineer. Okay, we launched this to everybody, and the only people that used it were these two. What is it about those groups that made the segue more appealing to them? What thoughts do we have? A lot of walking, that's right. They walk a lot, right? Long distances and or frequently, right? Basically, like the mall cops constantly going around. Tourists aren't doing it a lot, but when they go to a new city, they want to see as much as they can. They don't want to get tired, right? And that's basically a behavioral segmentation. So we could flip it around and say our hypothesis is anybody that walks a lot is probably going to be in the target market for this. Other people that don't aren't, right? Okay, so he tried to do disruptive innovation. That is one of the ways to create more value by taking it to 11, but it is riskier, right? That upper left quadrant, that's like really, really good odds that you're going to create value. Let's switch to Uber now. What customer need does Uber address? Using verbs, what will we say? Okay, yeah, exactly. Getting somewhere without my car. That's actually probably the best one I've heard in a while. That's great. Something like be driven where I need to go, getting somewhere without a car, right? Because you can't drive yourself. That's the essence of it. Either because you don't have a car or you don't want to drive because you don't want to park or whatever it is, right? Cool. Now, before Uber and Lyft and all those categories came out, what was the top solution for most people? Taxis, that's right. Now, if I ask people satisfaction high, medium, low for taxis, what would people say? Probably low, right? Now, in certain parts of the world, like Manhattan and London, you can just go out. It's like public transportation. You can get one quickly. But here in San Francisco, I remember you'd want a cab. You'd have to call because they're not just cruising around the street. You'd call, can I get a cab? Yeah, give me your address. It'll be there in 10 minutes. 60, 70% of the time, it would be there in 10 minutes. The rest of the time, you're like calling back, hey, where's the cab? I don't know. We'll send another one in 10 minutes, right? So we can plot taxis as a solution, right, in that upper left quadrant, because we said, I forgot to ask, how important is it to get to where you need to go when you're not driving? How is it important to get to your flight at the airport on time? It's pretty important, right? So we have high importance, low satisfaction. That's an example. And so it was an upper left quadrant need. So Uber came along and met that same need, but with a lot higher satisfaction. They've done a lot of things right, obviously, Uber and Lyft, to get to where they are with good product and good operations. But I think one of the kind of hidden reasons for why they were so successful is they were fundamentally addressing an upper left quadrant need. Now, last thing I want to show, I've been talking to you about how to use this to identify and prioritize opportunities. You can also apply this to your existing product. So if you have an existing product and you want to see how you're doing with product market fit, we can actually think about it like feature market fit. So I'm going to switch the context a little bit. Instead of talking about customer needs, you can actually ask people for each feature in your product, hey, how important is this feature and how satisfied are you in this feature? And I want to share with you some real data when I did that for one of my products. So we had a lot of features in the product, but there were 13 key features. And the goal we were trying to figure out is, okay, which of these need to be improved? Like which of these are doing well and which of these should we focus on improving in the next release cycle? And so we actually surveyed our users. So now we have importance data with numbers instead of high, medium, low. And we have satisfaction data with numbers instead of high, medium, low, right? And each of these points is one of those features plotted with its importance and satisfaction. And the number to the right of the point is just the satisfaction, so you can see it a little more easily, right? Now, as the PM for this product, the first thing I phoned in on was this this feature, right? What were customers telling us? They were telling us this feature was 100% importance, can't get any more important than that, and we were delivering 98% satisfaction. So I was like, awesome job, team, great job. That is a well-met need. Let's not go spend time on that. Like, we could try to get the last 2%, but that's pretty, and unfortunately, a lot of times when you go to try to make something better, you inadvertently, mess it up a little bit. So we're like, let's just, that one's good. And then we had a cloud of features here, and we had this feature here. But this feature here was the one that was, kind of closest to that upper left corner. It was pretty high importance and pretty low satisfaction, right? So we used that to prioritize and say, okay, for the next product release, we're going to redesign, we're going to go talk to, that led to discovery. Let's go talk to people. Why is it not working for them? What do we need to do to make it better? Let's redesign it. Let's prototype it. Let's test it. And so that was helpful. So you can also not only use it for opportunities, but also to assess how you're doing with your current product. All right, so in summary here, in prioritizing your needs, resist that temptation to jump to solutions, right? We live in solution space. So that problem space, solution space thinking, it's not like people are born with it. You have to learn it. It's kind of like a sixth sense. And when somebody suggests, hey, let's build this thing in your team meeting, you should hopefully have a little yellow flag that goes off and says, hey, wait a minute, that was a solution that they just proposed. It's okay. What you do is you use that why hack and say, okay, I hear you're saying we should build feature X. Can you help me understand why that would be useful to customers, right? So you can get clear on the problem space. Then you want to, basically explore the problem space, brainstorm all those different things. Remember, verb, that's what's happening. Start with verbs. And then create that problem space definition. And then once you have that definition, then you can score each of your needs on importance and satisfaction. And then you can just use that hack of proximity to that upper left corner to prioritize. And hopefully, the two main ways to create value, the lowest risk way is if you can find some upper left quadrant opportunities for your target market. Addressing those is a great path to success. And then you can try to go to 11 with disruptive innovation if you have a solid case for why you can think it. And then finally, again, you can assess the importance versus satisfaction for your features of your product. So thanks a lot, everybody. Appreciate it. If you want to... I'd love to hear your feedback on this talk. You can go to that URL or hold up your phone, and happy to send you a copy of the slides as well. And I look forward to chatting with you all later.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dan. That was awesome. And again, infinite gratitude to stepping in on such short
We're
notice.
agile here. We're agile.
Yes, we're iterating on the conference in real time. So to start off the questions, first of all, make sure that you get into Slido, ask your questions. We do have some time, so I love seeing them come in. How do we get around the problem of users telling us that everything is important?
Every once in a while I get someone where they do the scales and they say, everybody gave us like a 5 out of 5 on importance. And so a couple things, that's a great practical question. I like to answer those. So basically a couple things. If you need to increase your scale to 7, increase it to 7, right? It's fine. You might do that and everything's a 7, right? So then what do? So what you can do is you can force people to rank order then. You can say, okay, you told me these 3 needs or these 3 problems were 7 out of 7. Now I need you to go and rank order them. Which one's the highest one? 1, 2, 3, 4. You can use card sorting, to make it physical and easier for people to do. That's usually the easiest way. Another thing that's a little more complicated people do is the dollar. You have $100, allocate the dollar. So it's just, you're trying to get some way to force them to prioritize it. And so rank ordering, is a good way to do it.
Amazing. What's the best way to kind of really get people to break out of that solution mindset and really start thinking about the problem? Like, how do you coach teams or your team members to really take that step back and think about the problem first and break it down?
It's tough. Basically you need someone on the team that's got the awareness to bring to the team when you're in a team meeting, because solution ideas are going to come up, right? It happens all the time. We should build a drop down. And I usually have a slide that shows, I say who here knows the Agile user story template as a blank, I want a blank so I can blank? Almost everybody's raising their hand. But then you go to Jira and it's build a drop down, add a menu, add a screen, add a database table, API call, and so we kind of get amnesia, even though we all know it, right? And so part of it is not writing your tickets that way. And the cool thing about the tool everybody pretty much uses, Jira, is you can have a proper user story, and then you can have subtasks. And so the message here, by the way, is not, hey, never think about solution space. That's not, because obviously at the end of the day, developers have to build things. We have to know what to build. We have to have, be able to check it, progress. So you can have a user story and then have the dev task within it. Now back to the question, the best way to do it is just someone has the awareness, and when it happens real time in a meeting, that person needs to go, oh, hey, wait a minute, I think and what you can do, you don't want to say it in a controversial way. You can say, hey, I hear you recommending we build feature X. I hear you. Can you help me understand how that would be valuable to a customer? So it's that why hack, but the person's got to catch it. And then, if you keep doing it time and again in your Scrum team meetings, people are going to eventually catch on and go, oh, that was a solution. That was, so that's how it kind of spreads and more people build awareness over time. So, yeah.
Yeah, that what problem are we trying to solve question. This is something I know I have had, and it's incredibly frustrating when you're faced with it. How do you tackle when you have a user problem that is currently addressed by your product, and a user says, this thing, it needs to do this thing, and you're like, it does.
Right. Right.
And your users aren't aware of the functionality.
Right.
How do you address that? What do you do with that information?
Well, there's two scenarios. One is most likely they may not know you have it, right? And there are certain products that have been around for a very, very long time, like Word, right, or Photoshop or Quicken, that have these robust features. Because you're basically adding X features per year, and they just build up. And it's funny, because I think at one point in time, I know one product that I worked on like that, the top request was, can you cut features? Like, that was the top customer request. So, and that's one of the challenges is when you've got power users, they use those things, but new people coming on board, they're like, I don't even know what's going on. So I remember Microsoft Office a long time ago introduced the ribbon. That was their attempt to you could still do all the power keystrokes and all that jazz, but for new users, they could do that. So part of it may be the information architecture of your product. It's kind of buried. It's not the navigation and the way it's structured doesn't make it apparent. We all know the importance of onboarding, these days. When you have a new product, you can see best practices, especially from the App Store, where it walks you through the first time to let you know it's there. I guess it can even go all the way up market to your product marketing materials. Are your product marketing materials or sales materials doing a good job of highlighting it? And I think that the core issue is when you have just too many. Imagine, we've got 50 features. I can't possibly promote 50 features to you and explain 50 features. If it's more than 3 or 4, you're gonna it's gonna be over your head, right? So part of it is prioritizing and how you structure it, and that's where the ladders can come in handy, right? You can have a parent concept of here's the benefit, and then here's all the sub features that do it. So that's one thing. The last thing I will say is sometimes you may think your product solves it well, but maybe it doesn't for certain use cases. And so most of the times they're not aware, but it may also be yeah, I know you think it's doing that, but there might be some dissatisfaction.
The way that I need it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
The workaround isn't always as satisfactory, right?
Yeah.
Another question from Brendan. How do you handle being a product manager on a product that is not solving actual customer needs?
Well, first of all, I would wonder how that product exists, because this is all about how to create value, and you can't capture value. So who would be buying that product is what I'm wondering, right? Who would be buying that product? But that being said, I think there are products out there, I would say it another way, they don't have great product market fit, per se. And maybe, in general, if you don't have good product market fit, you're just setting yourself up to be disruptive, right, and be competed. But maybe you've got some monopoly, or maybe you've got something going on, some network effects, something that you're in market. I just think, you should have some indicators, right? I get pulled into consulting companies all the time, and one of the biggest reasons is, hey, we tried launching 3 new products over the last 18 months, and none of them succeeded, right? And when that happens, something's wrong, right? Or if you've got low NPS scores, right, or low customer satisfaction scores, something's wrong. So hopefully, failure can be a big motivator, right? People aren't just going to wake up one day, oh, we should do problem space now. I think that'd be great. If everything's going well, they're just going to keep doing what they're doing. So I would also just kind of if you really feel like you're in that situation, do some soul searching and say, is this the company I want to be at? If we're not really delivering customer value, if we're just like a feature factory, and it's just, and I don't know, I don't even know what that scenario would be like, but I would just, consider going to a place where you can actually, deliver customer value.
Great. So we talk a lot about ethics and product and the way that our products have impacts on the world. And there are companies, there are products where on the whole might be, might be ethical in some ways, have some spots where are a little shaky, whether that's how markets are created or whether it's how their products have impact on the world. how should we be thinking about ethics in the context of the products that we're building and our role in that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So one of the things with the benefits in the problem space, you can kind of categorize them. And they're like functional benefits. And it's funny, when you get that kind of philosophical, at the end of the day, you're either saving people time, you're saving them money, you're making their job easier, like productivity, which is save time again. And then there's a whole category of emotional and social benefits. And I feel like, not to generalize, but a lot of the products that go into that gray area are in that space where it's like, I'm portraying myself how I want to be and things like that, right? So you're really preying on those kind of emotional needs that people have. And it's tough. I mean, it's a tough thing to do. And I think that, one things you can do is try to like set up some metrics for how do we know we're not going too far here? Like if people are using this like 22 hours a day, right? I mean, these days, like especially think about the movies and TV shows. Like they know how to make movies and TV shows that we all just want to watch. Like, if you don't have self-control, you can sit in front of your TV all day, right? Because they've really gotten good at like creating, things that people want to use. And I feel like, yeah, to your point, certain products are like that. So I think, and I think you can do market research to try to assess how you're doing with that, and have feedback loops. Have an open discussion with your customer base too can help identify some of those issues, hopefully.
Yeah, I think there's another side of it as well that is, when there are decisions that we have within our problem space, our purview as product people, and there are business decisions that sometimes we don't have the ability really to impact. And I think kind of for that, it is up to us as product people to look at, we may be doing good work in the context that we have.
Right.
But if you don't agree with your company's leadership or you don't agree with the decisions that are coming kind of outside of what you have within your control, it is up to us to make our stand to decide that we are or not going to be okay with that. So
I think you brought up an important point, which is I really focus on customer needs. And the general idea is if you deliver customer value, you should be able to capture that value to deliver business value. But to your point, in these ethical situations, what happens is you've got the customer needs, but then you've got business goals. And they're at odds sometimes. And when you can kind of tell when they're at odds, if you're trying to drive user behavior, and the whole reason you're trying to drive that behavior is directly to do business outputs, then that's how it's a little warning flag that, hey, this isn't all just about customer needs. Obviously, businesses need to monetize to stay in business, but when when it flips it on its head and the business goals are driving what you're building instead of the customer value, that's when there's a warning sign, I think.
It's such a great segue to the next question, which is asking literally around that. How do you balance those customer needs with business needs, right? Like
Yeah.
if you end up in that situation, how can you push back? How can you find that balance again?
It's tough. I mean, it's tough because I think, and there's a natural evolution, just like there's a product life cycle for products, there's a company life cycle, right? When you're an early, not to overgeneralize, when you're early stage startup, you're trying to find that product market fit. You kind of have to be focused on solving a real customer problem or you're never going to get to break even. You're never going to get to continue to exist. And some startups do what I call chasing revenue. You got to get some revenue. You're going to do that. But at the end of the day, you tend to be aligned on solving user needs. It can be the case if you're fortunate and you grow in that market, and now you're the market leader. And the company's getting more mature and things like that. That's where, and I can sympathize too. When you're a private company, you don't have to hit quarterly goals, right? Most of us have been at a public company. It's like every quarter you've got to hit those numbers or else. And so that brings that pressure to do more business goals. So part of it is just being mindful of what stage your company's in. Different divisions of a company can be in different stages. But yeah, it's tough. And actually, at the end of the day, it's funny because I noticed this is a company will say, okay, we need to grow sales revenue by 15% this quarter. Okay, PMs, what are you going to do to grow revenue 15% this quarter? It's like no underpants. It's like, here's our roadmap. Here's 15% revenue growth. I have no idea how they're connected, right? It's like, it's just faith-based accounting kind of. It's like, okay. And so someone kind of looks at it and goes, yeah, I think that'll do it. It's like, so that's the real black box is how do you really do it? And then, we've talked a little about OKRs and KPIs. Like I have seen examples where, you can put teams focused on, you don't want to do only teams on business. You can have an acquisition team. You can have a conversion team. You can have a retention team. Now, you also want to have, teams that are really focused on delivering customer benefits as well. But then those teams they can say, okay, our target is increasing conversion by 10%. Let's brainstorm all the ideas we have, and we think we can, with this set of features over this quarter, we think we can do that. That's a way to kind of break it down and try to do it. But I hear you, yeah, at the end of the day, if you feel like your organization is too focused on business goals, not enough on users, then you got to try to bring it up if you can. But at the end of the day, one or a small number of product managers are not going to be able, hopefully, probably to change the culture, right? It's a culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So it's like you might need to have to go to another company. You should try and work with your leadership and fight the good fight. And again, failure can be a big thing. If it's like, and I do think that if you keep focusing, it's like blood from a stone. If you keep trying to go revenue, it's all these business, kind of like tech debt. If you never pay down tech debt, it's going to bite you eventually. If you focus on customer, business, customers will understand, and they'll know that they're not really doing any updates for us, and they'll eventually lead to a better product.
Yeah. Have you ever felt a very high conviction for an idea that was in the lower left quadrant? And what do you do about that?
Yeah. So the top reason that happens is, I didn't say, because the foundation of the pyramid, I didn't have time to get into, is target customer. What happens a lot of times is the entrepreneur or the PM, and everybody does this, subconsciously falls into the trap that they are the target customer. I think segues are cool. I think this is going to be amazing, right? Look, and it combines with solution space too. Look at this cool solution I created that technology could do. I think this is super cool. And so that's the number one reason that happens. And the whole point of having target customers and using persona is so that you can get yourself out of your own head and say, okay, what would the busy mom want? It's not me. What would and we're having this debate. You and the developer debating, should we do this feature or that feature? To get it out of that and make progress, you go, okay, it's not about us. Let's either go talk to 5 customers, or let's just try to put ourselves in the target customer's shoes, and what would they want, right? So that's the number one reason I see people, again, it's like low importance and low ROI. Nobody does low importance or low ROI features on purpose. They think it's going to be high ROI, but because they didn't validate their assumptions, right, that's where the risk comes in.
Amazing. I think we have time for just one more question. So last one is, how can you help stakeholders understand that last year's going to 11 is maybe just not as satisfying anymore?
So yeah, the thing about solution space usually is a couple other things I talk about is shiny object syndrome, right? It's like you have your roadmap for the quarter, if you're lucky. If you're lucky, you have a rational product planning process. Hopefully some of you do. And you have a roadmap that people are bought into. And then 3 weeks into the quarter, usually it's a senior stakeholder or hippo comes in and says, I just listened to a podcast on blockchain. What's our blockchain strategy, right? We need blockchain now. And is blockchain a solution or a problem? Solution, right? Chatbots, solution. ML, solution, right? So they're usually the ideas, these like flavors of the month or something, are solution ideas. And then what happens is they come in, and I call them meteorites, because they just come in, they like, whatever plan you had, they come in, they just, the plan, right? And unfortunately, because most people don't have a really good rationalized product planning process, no one goes, okay, we can do that meteorite, but it's going to take 8 dev weeks, so what are we going to trade off? No, it's usually like, yeah, we'll work it, the VP really wants it, so we're going to work it in. And there's that iron triangle of software development of like time, scope, resources, quality. If you're not actually making the trade-off, something's going to silently slip out, right? Something's going to slip out. So I think part of it is just quarterly retrospectives of saying, hey, we thought we were going to launch these things, and here's what we actually launched, and here's the meteorites that came in. I've seen some companies do a really good job of that, where it's like, hey, we planned on these 12 features, 6 went out, and then we added these 3 meteorites, and we didn't get to these other 6. And then the second part, which is really what you're asking, what's more important is, that's just kind of like keeping yourself honest of what you did per roadmap, like a retrospective. The next thing is, and we were counting on those features to deliver 15% revenue. How did we do on that? And so usually, that's where people start to realize there's a disconnect, and these shiny objects aren't moving the needle on our key business metrics because they're not really solving customer problems.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. Let's have another round of applause for Dan Olsen.
Thanks.